Hey everybody, and welcome to the chapter that prevented me from sleeping. It made me feel like a prisoner because of how much I limited my interactions to avoid spoilers. I'm recording this right after reading the chapter. I actually don't know where to start because even the parts that didn't focus on Luffy were beyond brilliant and were presented in such a powerful way. This chapter is one of the greatest in One Piece and I got chills reading it from beginning to end. Usually after reading a One Piece chapter, I imagine how it'll be animated, but this is beyond human imagination at this point. What I love about it the most is that even as the biggest power-up in this series, Luffy is Luffy. He's the embodiment of freedom, and Oda's art in this chapter brought back the cartoonish style in early One Piece and perfectly incorporated in the middle of the battle. Now let me chill and start from the beginning. I like the art in the cover story, even though it's obvious that Pudding will save Niji and Yonji. The chapter starts with an energetic Luffy wondering why he's still up, while there's insane Conqueror's haki coming out all over the place. I love the reactions from other characters, mainly Sanji. It's interesting that Sanji was the first to feel Luffy's presence, not only because of his great observation haki, but how connected his dream is to Luffy's. Despite all the theories and speculations, somehow Oda always manages to connect everything in the best way possible. Luffy being Joy Boy and Sun God Nika is something a lot of us saw coming, but what truly makes all of this special is Oda's exceptional build-up and execution. The Gorosei revealing the Gomu Gomu no Mi to be a mythical Zoan before we get some of Oda's best imagery, with the Sun God contrasting the moon, symbolizing his ability to bring light over darkness. Essentially, what I got from this chapter is that Luffy's awakening basically gives him more freedom with the ability, so from stretching to inflating to using the environment, it is the peak of the Gomu Gomu no Mi. The Gorosei and Oda call the ability ridiculous, which perfectly describes it considering its strength but goofy nature. Smiles, laughter, Joy Boy. This arc has been filled with such themes and reveals the episode town people on how cheerful Luffy is as a character. Countless things all coming together is something only Oda can deliver. But there's two interesting characters to me after this chapter, Kaido and Shanks. It seems Kaido did suspect the possibility of Luffy being Joy Boy. This has been foreshadowed on several occasions, specifically these two panels, and the pirate Shanks talked about is pretty much confirmed to be Luffy after this, which makes Shanks' motives very suspicious and even more mysterious. But I think that's the intention, because Oda will subvert all of these expectations. I don't think Shanks will end up being evil. At first I was pissed off at this section, because going from all of that to Orochi is such a jarring transition. But I absolutely loved how Oda handled all of this. Whenever Hiyori is wearing the mask and playing the shamisen, she's crying. Makes this panel really impactful after all the suffering she went through. Also, this is gotta be one of the best drawn panels in all of One Piece. It's just on another level. The dialogue in this whole section was amazing, as Orochi burns from both the Kozuki and Kurozumi. Gear 5th is born. With lighting effects that Oda uses effectively to make Luffy's power look more godly, like he's Zeus himself. Also, his design reminds me of Hercules, so it all at the end falls in the divine category. It's basically Luffy's god form. Luffy grabs Kaido to the top, and this is where One Piece peaked. Its goofiness and exaggerated nature, with Luffy's embodying everything special about this series. I loved Oda's art on Kaido, it was hilarious. After this chapter, I think Kaido's dynamic and chemistry with Luffy is my favorite of all villains. Instead of your typical One Piece villain reaction when the MC gets up again, Kaido is overjoyed, ending the chapter with an apology and revealing finally his regret of winning in dishonorable ways. It's just special, man. Can't describe it better. Luffy blocks Kaido's attack using the environment, and now it's kinda obvious he'll use his awakening to stop the island. The final chapters of Wano are beyond anything in One Piece. All of this madness could be topped next chapter as the finale is in sight. Luffy is the greatest MC, Kaido the greatest One Piece villain, Oda the greatest mangaka. I just want to add a few things that I found interesting, considering I recorded this immediately after the chapter and didn't have the time to think much about the chapter. I think after Luffy's devil fruit reveal, it's kinda obvious that the reason both can communicate with Zunisha is because of their devil fruit being a mythical zone. Also, Sanji's eyebrows being a bit similar to Luffy's awakening, to me hints that Oda has something in store for Sanji when we get the lore behind the devil fruits. I think after this, Luffy is a bit too OP, so after the fight with Kaido I expect a nerf, mainly because awakenings usually backfire hard on the character's stamina, so I can totally see it not being used as much to make the fights more interesting and not one-sided. I also expect Kaido's awakening after this to give the fight a bit more balance and intensity. This creates an insane question: would have Shanks saved Luffy if he did not eat the fruit? And I feel this chapter goes well with chapter 1, because in chapter 1 it was the first time Oda portrays the theme of laughing in the face of unpleasant things. 10 out of 10, like and subscribe.